Hey, hey, hey. What's up, guys? Node Investor here. Oh my God, Bitcoin is crashing. Everybody sell everything, exit all markets. I'm kidding. Everybody freaking out already. We got one red candle. How is everyone doing on this wonderful Monday, Tuesday, wherever you may be? Thank you for joining on another live edition of the Node Investor. So, what a weekend, right? What a last couple of 48 hours we've had, and we reached peak bearishness for a little while there. I would say we got a little bit overly scared, and rightly so. I mean, prices were coming down, but I just started seeing more and more. This thing's dead. It's going to zero. It's going to 1,000. It's going to 3,000. Everybody, after we were down near the lows, now it's going to really bottom. So, that just tends to happen. And the flip side, right? So you see the 20,000, 50,000 prices after the big run up. So, hey, it is what it is. I want to just share my thoughts on some of the price action we saw today and what to kind of expect over the next few hours to days or so. And we'll go from there. But first off, very quickly, I will move through some news, some interesting articles that I've been just kind of watching and seeing. And some of these you might have already heard. And so let's quickly go through these. So first off, one that was interesting, Tom Lee predicts 91,000 BTC by March 2020. And so this is a pretty interesting article if you haven't read it. Essentially, he's kind of just extrapolating some of the price percent gains, just using some of the past precedent on bulls and bears and percent moves higher and so forth. But what's really interesting, not the 2020 number, but some of the more recent predictions here, right? Most recently, he said we'd see 25,000 by the end of 2018. This was in January. And so we'll see if that still holds. But he's still very bullish. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. So now he has this misery index, this Bitcoin misery index, and it was hitting some pretty low levels. And, it's kind of a contrarian index, which is a little bit of what I kind of look at, right? When I'm doing stuff like this is I'll see what the sentiment and take a contrarian point of view oftentimes. And that's usually the wise thing to do when it comes to trading and investing. It's that old saying, right? Buy when there's blood on the streets. And there was certainly blood over the weekend. So he's got that. And he's also recommending, hey, this might be a good long-term entry point. So interesting article there by Cointelegraph on Tom Lee. EOS selling F, and I'm guessing some other ICOs were. But if you guys remember back when EOS first started their ICO and people were kind of complaining about, hey, they're doing this long-term ICO, they're raising a lot of money. And there was a few people talking about it. And this was kind of one of those, oh, it's a conspiracy theory, but there was a lot of truth to it. And now we're seeing it, right? And there was people sending, the company behind EOS tons of Ethereum, right? Over $1 billion worth. And the question was, well, if they're competing with Ethereum, once they get closer to launching a product and doing, wouldn't it just make sense to just crash ETH and start dumping the heck out of this thing, right? And cashing in some of the money they were raising. And there was a lot of, kind of conspiracy talk about that, but hey, makes sense. And we're starting to see some of that, right? They have to sell a lot of these ICOs. It's funding, right? They raise the money to support development and all that, but we're seeing some of that, and they've got a lot of ETH that they're still sitting on. And so it's going to be very interesting. We're doing some other ones, seeing some other ICO raises doing the same thing, but that was the reason they raised the money in the first place, right? But ETH is one of the bigger, or EOS is one of the bigger ones. Here we go on the G20. We've seen this. This came out yesterday, and there was just some positive news. And in my opinion, when I was watching, kind of the run up to the G20, my initial thoughts were, if they don't say anything at all or anything like totally negative, that would be positive. Mostly because of who we were dealing with, right? You're talking the G20, the top 20 economic countries and some of the bank regulators and government ministers from those countries. And generally speaking, we've seen them take a little bit of a tough stance on crypto in general, and clearly anything having to do with circumventing the current monetary system and all of that. And so the fact that they came out and were not totally bearish on it, and in fact were just saying, crypto's too small at this point to really regulate it. They acknowledge the technology potential and they don't want to stifle it too much at this point. And so there was a lot of that. Same thing coming out of the European Union, something saying that, hey, Bitcoin's just not big enough to regulate yet, so they're going to let it grow a little more. All around, very positive. The fact that they didn't just come out and bash crypto and say we got to regulate this thing to death, and so that was good news. And so we're seeing some of that. Twitter. Twitter is going to ban crypto ads. They're following suit with Facebook and Google here recently, so no big surprise. Although I'm a little disappointed. Jack Dorsey has been a big proponent of blockchain and Bitcoin, and it's not just his decision, but he and the folks at Twitter are going to go down this path and block some of this. And, in my opinion, it just means we get to see less crappy ICO ads, right? No big deal. But it's a little bit, too late, in my opinion. I mean, this was like something you guys should have done 6 months ago and not here at this time. But hey, it is what it is. They're following suit. Facebook's in the news for some other reasons. Big thumbs down there for Facebook. Anyway, I'm not big on Facebook. And then this one's fun. The newly appointed People's Bank of China, a new governor there, has been surprisingly, unexpectedly appointed, and historically in the past has been a little bit pro-Bitcoin. And so this is kind of interesting. And the funny part about this is, if you caught my newsletter, I actually mentioned his predecessor on my newsletter. And so I'll hop over to that. Let me see if I have it here. Yes. So if you didn't catch it, crypto is not dead. And so I kind of broke it down in a couple things. I mentioned the opposition, some notable people like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger talking about how bad crypto and Bitcoin is, Google banning ads, Twitter now following suit. And one of the other things that I mentioned on here was some of the bank regulators. And here I highlighted the last deputy governor of the PBOC. And he said, there's only one thing to do: sit on the riverbank and see Bitcoin's body pass by one day. So, not exactly a bullish statement. I'm taking it. He doesn't own any Bitcoin or doesn't want to, but kind of a nice change, in my opinion, in terms of what we're seeing there. And so maybe this creates some more bullish action on some of the regional plays there. So, and we're seeing some of that already, right? With Quantum coming on to Binance, additional pairs, but you're also seeing that ICX, you're seeing NEO have a pretty good move. And so maybe this is a good sign, and we'll see a little bit more adoption and out of the Chinese area. So we'll see, but all around a good change. So crypto's not dead. If you didn't catch that newsletter, you can find it on my Twitter here at Node Investor. There is a link. And I kind of going through some other things, kind of just set the perspective, the long-term view, where prices were compared to this time 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, and some of the signs that you would see at the bottom, many of which were already happening as I published that. So go check that out. All right, let's get to it. You guys want to check out some charts? First off, let's go to the CoinMarketCap, $333 billion. Bitcoin dominance dropping back to 43.5%. And what I'm really excited about is kind of the smaller to mid cap alts mostly, right? I mean, the Bitcoin dominance figure has a lot of influence from the bigger cap alts, right? So when things like ETH and Ripple and some of those bigger cap names really take off, you'll see that BTC dominance take a pretty decent pullback as those two trade areas. But there is this others category, right? That's representative of the, the number 11 spot and below, right? So the bigger names, but the top portion of that list represents about 18% of the current crypto cap right now. And it was down at about 17% in January when it peaked out. It was around 25%. And so we're seeing that have quite the pullback. And I'm thinking that category is going to be a little bit more of a area that will bounce some. We could see Ripple and and some of those other ones move too, but I'm thinking that category is going to take up a larger portion of the potential bounce that we're going to see here. And so I'll go through some of those names, but that's what I'm watching here, and that's going to be the area that I'm going to really be looking for more trading opportunities. Some of the big cap names, right? Cardano has had one of the bigger bounce moves. EOS. IOTA was one of the early movers. Yesterday was up about 32%. And from the lows, $1.31 here, it's already up around 31%. So still a good move. But I'm looking at kind of the list down here, right? So QDM, when we say Go, ICX, Nano, right? Some of these names that I think we're going to have a little bit stronger move. We saw Status yesterday had a huge move. R-Chain. So some of these other ones are going to be the ones that I'm going to be paying a little bit more attention to. But nevertheless, I mean, I do have some positions, some trades open right now on some of these big cap names, and they're all around looking pretty good. So let's see here. Let me get through a couple of comments here, and then we'll start doing some more charting. Let's see here. Feels like a bounce. Yeah, and so as I said yesterday and in my video today, it certainly is a balance, and there's some levels on the upside that we need to clear before we can feel a lot better in terms of confirmation. But if we do pull back, and I'll go over that here in a minute, there's also some good levels to watch as far as a higher low that could be established, and that would be even better in my opinion. So that's what I'm looking at. Do I think taxes are affecting this drop? I don't. A lot of people keep talking about that. I don't think tax selling or anything of that is here. It might have been a small portion of that, but the biggest drop, I mean, the biggest thing was the regulation uncertainty, the just some of that other stuff going out there, just some of the banning, and a lot of it too is just kind of market forces, in my opinion. Just some of the pullback, and it just accelerates once we start breaking support. You'll get some acceleration. So it was a lot of things. It wasn't one thing. And I think the tax selling is probably a small portion of that, to be honest with you. This is a bull fake out. It could be a bull trap. Certainly could. And I'll go through some of those in the details here. FBTC, should you jump on some ETH? It's lagging still. It's kind of looking weak, and we'll look at some of those here. I'd kind of be picking some other names personally. Let's see here. All right. Sales are still on the table until then. Yeah, I know, with tax day, and I owe taxes this year too. Uncle Sam's got to take his cut. All right, let's get to the charts here. So if you didn't catch my video earlier today, I'm going to rehash a little bit of what I'm seeing, some of the action that I'm going to expect here. Let me clear out. So this is BTC on Bitfinex. You guys know that I was watching this potential falling wedge, which we broke above the trend line there. We made a pretty good low here around the 7,300 mark here. There's some positive and some negative on that. Like on the hourlies, the volume was pretty good here on the reversal, so that's good. That's what you want to see on a very strong move. And that single bar was, over 7%. At peak to peak, it was like 9%. So a very strong move off the low, and that's what you want to see when something is going to put in a pretty good low. We're seeing some follow through to that now, but I'm starting to see some rejection here around some near-term resistance. And so the level that I'm watching here, very short term, is that 8,600 mark, which we're continue to test all day today. And so I'm still thinking we might get a little bit of a pullback, but if we don't, that's the level to watch on a breakout. And so let me clear these wedge measurements. And I did a video earlier today talking about some of the potential upside target on that wedge from the measured move. And that puts us, in and around this $9,700 mark on the upside target, which makes sense because it's kind of the next major resistance zone there. And so what I'm looking for here is two things, right? We could just break out from here and have a solid move. RSI is starting to diverge a little tiny bit, not a lot, but you're seeing here's a 30-minute, and it's slowly drifting lower as this thing is trying to make these new highs. That's usually a little bit of a warning flag that maybe we see a little bit more downside testing first. So the first levels of support I'm watching is at 81, 8200 level, and then below that around $77, $7,800. We're not going to want to see it get much below that, and here's why. Right, we have this higher low that was established here last week. Then over the weekend we had the dip. If this thing decides to start pulling in a little bit and it makes a higher low than this one here, that would create a nice little head and shoulder pattern, an inverted head and shoulder pattern, right? And so let me highlight that and show you guys what I'm potentially seeing here as a an alternative to this double bottom that we saw here. And so you could see something like this, where you have another pullback, another test of the downside, then we make a higher low and then retest this neckline. In my opinion, that would be a much stronger scenario from which BTC could break out from. And in that case, you still have the same upside target projection, but it changes a little bit. So let's see. If we had that play out, then you say project out to the neckline from the breakout point, and that takes you to a much higher place. Well, not too bad. It's basically the same target. So still around $9,700. But that'd be an interesting scenario to play out. And ideally, it's not going to go back that far if this pattern is going to play out. It'll probably be a shorter right shoulder here, a much shallower one, probably to 8K or something. That's what I'd be looking for. And then we could rally from there. So that's a scenario that I'm watching. Near term, feels like the momentum has shifted, right? It's not as bearish as it was, but overall, big picture, we are still very much in a downtrend, right? If you take the big picture view, you have to acknowledge that. I mean, this is still very much in a downtrend, and this could just be a small rally within the bigger picture, probably a good tradable rally, and there's plenty of good trades to be made. Because, I mean, if BTC rallies to this trend line and gets to 9, 10K, tons of altcoins are going to have good moves like we've already seen. And just like we saw back here off the lows, I mean, there was plenty of good trades to be made, and we did. And so you could see that happen again, and then maybe that, continues the down move. So got to keep both into perspective, because this is a lot of time, right? You're talking between now and early April or something that this could play out. Between now and then, I mean, that's a long time in crypto. It's just, weeks go by. I mean, think about it. The last 10 days or so prior to this rally felt like an eternity, right? I mean, this the move from 11.5 down to the lows over the weekend, that was 13 days, but it just felt like so long. And I remember thinking last week, was that just last week that we were at 11.5? It was like, man, and it's, it's a 24-hour market and just things move fast. So, so my point is, if we do have a rally that only lasts, another week or so, right, a little bit more, that's still a long time. So, it just, there's plenty of trades to be had, in my opinion. So, there's a lot of folks will take too much of an extreme point of view. And here at the lows, they're saying, oh, we're below the 200-day and it's over. And this thing's going to, to 5K and then to 3K, and, just stay out of the way. And it's like, okay, I mean, if you're a long-term hodler, then certainly that you got to factor that in. A lot of you guys like to stay a little bit more active, even if it's just swing trading and holding for a couple weeks. Then you don't want to take too extreme of a view either way, to the bullish or to the bearish side. So just a little piece of advice: try to stay as objective and as neutral as you can in these markets, and just take it one day at a time. And it's very subjective to news and all that fun stuff too. So we all know that. All right, there's my rant on the BTC. Appreciate all the comments, guys. Appreciate all of the support. Hit that like button, ladies and gentlemen. Smash that like button. Don't hurt your phones. So there's talk about the potential death cross coming. There is the 200-day moving average, and let me see if I can have that plotted on one of my other charts here. Long story short, it's not going to change my point of view at all. Is basically it, because we already know the market's in a bear market, right? So having a death cross confirmation does nothing for me because, okay, I mean, if I'm waiting to sell until the dang death cross happens, you are way late to the party, right? And so, and vice versa, those moving averages just tend to move very slowly. So let me add another moving average here for you guys, and I will explain what we mean by the death cross. And there's different moving averages you can use for that. But the most popular are the 50, 200 day. And that's primarily a stock metric, to be honest with you. And 200 day is not something I really pay attention to a whole lot in crypto because it's a 7 day a week market. It is a 24-hour a week market. So you got to use moving averages that are a little bit shorter and a little bit faster, in my opinion. And so having these 200 day, 50 day, you can just, I mean, just look back at history. Let me show you guys. I mean, how many times on this chart does the 200-day moving average get hit and be support in the last 2 years, right? Never. I mean, it's a good gauge of, yeah, it's above or it's below it, but okay, it got hit once there in 2016, never touched again, came pretty close here, never touched, you know, so it's not a very consistent metric. Here's the 50-day, right? It's above, it's below, it's above, it's below. It's never really acted as a place of support. I mean, here's one example there, maybe right there, but then it's other than that, it's never a place that we bounce right into. I mean, right there, right? So my point is, it's not exactly the leading metrics I would go off of. In stocks, it's very important because of the way the calendar is set up, the 5-day weeks, all that fun stuff. In crypto, it's a little bit different. And so if you're going to do that, you got to go a little bit shorter, in my opinion. Instead of the 200-day, I would go like the 140, something like that. That seems to be a little bit stronger of a long-term moving average, and we've been well below that for a long time. And you can see here, price hits the 140 a lot more often, and that seems to be a little bit better of a bellwether. So, and that's just because of the nature of the 7-day weeks. And so you got to adjust the price. Same with the 50-day. So that being said, let me get back to the death cross that everyone's talking about, that I'm not really paying attention to because it doesn't change the picture. The picture's already bearish, so whatever. So here's the death cross. What people are talking about is you got this declining 50-day moving average, 50-period moving average, and it's about to undercut the 200-day. And long-term, especially in the stock market and some of those other markets, that is significant because that just confirms that the long-term uptrend is shifting, the momentum, the 50 days moving. And so, you know, when I used to do a lot of stocks, and I still do from time to time, but it's been mostly crypto here, there's an old saying, right? If you're below, or, you know, if you're below the 50-day, right, it's not good. You want to be above the 50 because that's when good happens. Above the 200 days, okay, but below the 200-day, nothing's good. And, you know, and having this death cross where both moving averages move, then that's negative, right? So that's the way it works in the stock market, and it makes sense there. That's all I'm saying. But here, whatever. It's already bearish. Death cross is not going to help me. You know, you got to look at the price volume action at this point. And so we've been bearish for a long time. People are saying, oh, it's confirmation. It's going to get bearish. If anything, I'll probably take that as a contrarian indicator. And when everybody starts going bearish, then you start looking to the other side. So, all right, long term. Near term, we're still below the declining 10 EMA. We've rallied right into that. And, you know, here in recent past, that's been an area of resistance, right? These exponential moving averages. And we've bounced right into that. And here we are pausing. It makes sense that we're pausing there. And so I would be looking for a little bit of a pause or pullback here, a break above that, which is also going to be a key support resistance level here around that 86, 8700 mark. Once we can get above that with some good volume, that would be very positive in shifting the momentum on this daily chart. We saw that happen back here off of the extreme lows in February. We rallied right into that moving average. And then we saw a period of a few days where it was kind of like the wall, and then we pulled back. And then once we finally started living above it, then it was kind of just off to the races and had another run. This is the daily chart, but this set up a really nice cup and handle pattern on the shorter term time frames. And so there you go. So that's the near term. Let me see here. Some comments. Appreciate the feedback, friends. Good stuff here. Node is greater than tone. that just made my day. That's it. Party's over. I'm gonna give away some Bitcoin over that. Oh, all right. Let's see here. Combined stochastic RSI and RSI oversold values. I've got a pretty good bull momentum index proprietary that I've come up with. Some of you guys are asking me if I have a Telegram group. I do maintain a private Slack channel. Don't have a Telegram group yet, but here's what I do have is this bull momentum index, right? This is a combination of several indicators, several things that I watch. And so you can see here, we're just on the daily now kind of coming off the lows. The momentum index here is only at 45. And so not confirming yet, but in the shorter term time frames, it's definitely looking pretty good. You can see here off the lows. I mean, here was the big bar that pushed us above that. And the interesting thing is on this index, I've actually got a little signal here that I can plot. You can see this actually signaled a little bit of a bull confirmation here the hour before we had the big breakouts. And so that's good that we see that confirmation following that. And we're seeing just kind of the momentum index here near the highs. So that's all around positive in the very short term. On the 4 hour, it's still here near the highs, even with the pullback. This thing, is still looking all right, pretty good, but we'll see. The volume's starting to wane a little bit here as we approach this resistance. So I'm kind of leaning towards we're going to get a little bit of a pullback first, in my opinion. And then that'll probably help the daily picture if we can set up a higher low. Let's see here. When's the 1K Bitcoin party? I hate to break it to you guys, but we're never going to see 1K Bitcoin ever. So unless every world government comes out and says we just ban Bitcoin altogether, just not going to happen. 5K maybe. 1K, nah. All right. Let's see here. Oh, man. Tone. All right. You guys are all talking about tone on the comments now. All right, let's go. So we covered Bitcoin. Any other things on Bitcoin? Let me see here. Any other thoughts? Upside targets. I didn't talk about that. Let's talk some upside targets on Bitcoin. I'll do the 12-hour chart here. So I mentioned on the wedge breakouts, the upside target was kind of around that 9,700. That happens to correlate with this resistance point. So that would make some sense there if we saw a complete fib bounce on this current bounce we're seeing. If we don't get that dip, but we just continue to bounce. First target is going to be right around 9K, which is a key psychological number. And then above that, just shy of 10K. And so I would bet that it would probably peter out before that. And so those are the two big upside targets that I'm looking at here if this thing continues to rally here. So, all right, I think I covered the BTC, covered the dominance. Looking for some more smaller names, mid-cap names to have some strong moves. And so let's get to it. All right, I'm going to cycle through some of the market cap list. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will go through some of these names and answer some of your questions here. And so let's see. We covered BTC. We covered ETH a little bit. Let's go a little bit more in depth on ETH. ETH has been under pressure here. If you look at the USD pair, it still hasn't broken out and not as strong as some of these other names, but it is putting a nice little bit of a flag pattern here. And so let's see if it can finally break out and maybe we see some upside momentum on the BTC chart, but that's been a very clear wall. So getting about $560 on ETH would be good. Now, if you bought the blood over the weekend, that was a good move just because this thing was just like in free fall mode and it bottomed out around 450, 460. And, anywhere from there, I mean, that's not bad, right? 21% in basically a day, but then it's just been flat since then. And if you look at the BTC pair, it's still lagging. I mean, just look at this. We had a little bit of a rally off the lows, one of the early movers up 8% versus BTC, but then has just continued to lag. I think some of the concern around more people dumping F is still valid. There is a little bit of a bullish divergence showing up here, so that's a good sign. My bet is we see some upside breakout on F here near term, just because the news is a little bit bearish right now, and it's kind of gotten about as bearish as it could get. So you're seeing a little bit of a wedge here, and so we'll see. Maybe we get upside testing. Maybe it tests this resistance point again. If we do see that, that would correlate to a breakout on the USD pair, but gotta wait for that. For now, it's definitely a little bit more on the weaker side compared to some of these other names that we'll look at here in a sec. So that's F. Let's go through some of the other ones here. Ripple. You guys all love Ripple, don't you? I know you don't. So full disclosure, I hold 0 Ripple in my long-term portfolio. But Ripple from the USD pair, again, just like a lot of these, is having a very strong move. I mean, Ripple went down to 53 cents over the weekend. Wow. I mean, that's wow. I mean, I hope you didn't buy it at $3. Unfortunately, Ripple still looks a little bit weak in my opinion, not quite as strong as some of these other ones, but this one just tends to have these big moves off the lows, even if it's just a counter trend rally. I mean, I played it back here when we had that move off the low in February and turned out to be a very nice trade, but just not holding it long term. Ripple, BTC though, it's still kind of looking a little bit weak here. I mentioned here a while ago that it's interesting that it almost broke down from the exact same horizontal price point here as it did early in the year. I don't expect a replay of this, but you can see that that's been a very clear level of resistance that it just can't break above. And so until it does, it's going to remain under pressure. All right, another one of your favorites, Bitcoin Cash, Bcash in the house. So let's go look at the Bcash here. Sub 1,000 still. Come on, where's my charts? Looking at Bcash here. So on the dollar chart, just like anything else, it's daily, right? It's had that rally right into the 10 EMA, but it's been pretty strong here. I don't know if there was any news last week. It was having some pretty decent pops to the upside, other than some more merchant acceptance and all that fun stuff on Bitcoin Cash. But you got to give it the benefit of the doubt. What I've been seeing here is some very interesting accumulation patterns here in the shorter term timeframes. You've seen some big volume pops to the upside. And so you got to pay attention to that. It looks like it's trying to be accumulated here. Maybe it's finally found a low in and around this $800 to $900 range. So got to look at the Bcash there, see if it can finally break that downtrend. It's just been in a very long downtrend versus Bitcoin here as of late. You can see the the big picture just continues to pull back. Let me get the BTC chart. There's a BTC chart, but it is trying to form a low here. So maybe it's finally done. It's basically at around 11% of Bitcoin value. And so we'll see where that goes from there. But near term, probably not the top of my list right now. I'm not really too excited about this one yet. Litecoin. Did we talk Litecoin? No, we didn't talk Litecoin. So Litecoin kind of testing this little bit of a flag. It broke out, trying to break out of that 162 again. Looks like it wants to pull in a little bit here. Versus BTC, it's relatively flat. And here's the USD tether chart, but relative to BTC, it's not as strong as I would have hoped. You can see in the last couple of days, it's just been kind of going sideways. And I'm watching these two trend lines here. Sorry about that. If it can break out above this, that'd be very positive. And the support here is going to be around that 0.185 or so. And that's going to be the level that I'm watching in terms of the Litecoin action. So I'm looking more for a test of this upside that would confirm this breakout. And then if we can see some more upside, then the target I'm looking for is around 170 or so near term on Litecoin. Cardano, very strong move off the low. Let's look at Cardano BTC first. It's basically right at some very long-term resistance. And so you can see here, we had this support that broke down, pulling in a couple weeks ago, and now it's rallying right into that. Just happens to be right above the 10 EMA, which is pretty good. So we'll see if I can see some more upside. But man, look at that action here in the last couple of days. Just very strong off the lows. Been one of the stronger names, up about 30% from the lows right now. And so looking pretty good. Cardano USD, let me look at that one just because I'm doing a little bit of both right now, especially for the folks that are still sitting on cash or looking for entries, right? I've been getting questions around what would be the things to look at? And so these are the things I'm looking at here. And sorry, all the markups, guys. Just I was doing some posting on some charts earlier, but near term on the trade that I'm in right now, I got in earlier here around 16 cents, 17 cents, and just kind of looking at this as my near term targets above 20 cents, 23 cents on the pullback. This has got a hold, in my opinion, and we're testing this key resistance point right now around 19 cents. Above that, that's going to be the next level to watch. It's a little bit more of a zone, so 20 to 23 cents. If it can clear 23 cents, then it'll have a pretty decent room run up to around the high 20s, 29 or so, and so that's pretty good. But all around, it's been very strong. Would you invest in a node token? I thought about it, and I've come to the conclusion that if I'm ever going to do my own fund or my own node token, I just got to leave the States. This is too damn complicated to do it here. I've actually looked into it a few years ago. I was looking at some, I was talking with the securities lawyer and setting up a hedge fund and all that stuff, non-crypto related, some other securities, but I decided not to because of the paperwork and the administrative overhead and the insaneness that it would require. So I don't manage anybody's money. Maybe one day. All right, we did Cardano. Neo. Gotta look at Neo. Let's take a look at Neo, and then I'm gonna start skipping ahead and doing some other names. Okay. Let's see. Neo. So going to the 1 hour on Neo. Nice little flag it was setting up here. A little bit of an ascending triangle on the 1 hour chart following that big run. Gave you a pretty good setup. And here we are, some good volume coming out, breaking out. That was a good secondary entry point if you weren't already in it. This was the level I was watching for the first resistance level. It's clearing it now. And so it's looking pretty good. Next target that I'm watching is around 80 bucks. And that's going to be my next upside targets on Neo. But man, Neo was sub $50. Holy cow. Sub $50. Oh, Neo. Here we go. At least we're back at 70. But versus BTC, the chart's very similar. Had that move, a little bit of ascending triangle, a little bit of a pattern, and then boom, you're breaking out. Good volume. Everything is what you want to see. This is textbook, right? You just see the break, the big pattern, the pause, and then it gets quiet, and then boom, big volume. And so all around, very positive. I'm happy with the Neo trade so far. So let's see. What else we got here? EOS, man, one of the stronger names here as of late. So let's take a quick peek at the EOS BTC here. Just a very strong move. Definitely hitting some overbought conditions. So I'm not chasing it up here. You guys know my style. I would rather be a little bit more conservative, especially in this market where I'm still somewhat risk averse. And so I'm taking it a little bit slower. But a pullback down to here or a little bit of a flag up at these levels would be a nice secondary entry point. But man, what a good move on EOS here. Big picture though, it had a big reversal off the lows with good volume. I mean, just look at that. In a single day, just cleared out the last 2 weeks of EOS bearishness. And so good stuff. Got to pay attention to that. It was way oversold. And I kept saying that for like a week and a half, but it was way oversold. RSI on this thing was at 21 and finally saw some bounces. So good stuff. Let's see here. Stellar Lumens. Let's take a quick look at the Lumens. Another one that's pretty good. I like the big wick it had off the lows. Showed some pretty good support here on the 1 hour. You can see here very strong action, and it's just now breaking out and testing a little bit on the breakout points, but it looks good all around. It looks really good. The volume is very positive. Not a lot of divergence here on the RSI, so it's just kind of pulling back to that test out, back to the 10 EMA. The bullish index near the highs, and so all around very good stuff. But I'm just a little cautious. I'd rather buy the little dips and the pullbacks than the breakouts, but this one's still pretty good. So looking all right here. IOTA was one of the early movers over the weekend. I noticed it was one of the few that started to go up before everything else, and then it's just been sitting tight here. But it was up like 30% in no time off the lows. Here's the IOTA USD pair. Talked about this in my last stream, talking about how that $1 mark was a big psychological point of support, as well as long-term historical support. So you can see going way back here, there was the dollar where it peaked out around $1.04, and we broke out here, and we came all the way right back to that point. And so looks like it held so far. Will it retest it? We'll see. But the volume coming off the lows was very strong. We'll see if that's the low, but near term, the action is pretty good. And so I'm liking the way this one's looking here in the short term. Monero. Looking at the Monero. Let's go Monero BTC first here. So Monero BTC, was one of the stronger names here last month or so, but then just fell off. Some of you guys are asking about the fork. Is that going to be enough to pump Monero? I don't think so. It's just not that big of a deal. And that's what you're seeing here. So it just has not been as strong as I would have liked. So definitely not looking like one of the top tier names right now. Monero, I really like long term. And I think I consider it one of my top privacy names, Monero and Zcash. But it's just kind of been pulling off. And you saw some news here of exchange, the one out in Japan. They're pulling Monero and some of the privacy names off of their exchange. And I wonder if it's going to be one of those trends that we start seeing where if exchanges are going to comply with some of the KYC, anti-money laundering laws, if they're going to have to get rid of some of the privacy names. And so just something I'm considering there. But Monero. All right. Let's see here. Let me start skipping through some names. I will go through Tron, VeChain. VeChain's still pretty strong here. So I'm going to hop over. Well, no, let me stick here for a little bit. I think I have Tron on here. So I did have Tron. Was one of the names I was watching here closely yesterday, today, just as a potential entry because of this. So you can see I've already marked up my chart. It had the rally right to resistance here, pulled back, rallied, pulled back. But look at the lows are just getting really tight. And this thing is going to bust out one way or the other here pretty soon. And so we'll know. And that's, that's why I've been keeping a close eye on this guy, see what the next move is. But all around, looking pretty good. Long term, I'm just not I'm not sold on Tron yet long term. They talk a good game, but feels a little bit overvalued still unless we start seeing some big developments. But near term, this thing has been known to move. And so I may be looking at it from a trading perspective for a pretty good move up. And then we'll have to go from there. But there's Tron. That's the level I'm watching there. Keep an eye on that here. We'll know in the next few hours. By tomorrow for sure, but we'll know soon. Maybe by the end of the live stream. So that's Tron. VeChain was the one I wanted to see here. So VeChain looking pretty good here. Some volume finally starting to come in here. Been sitting tight for most of this move. Had a pretty good move off the low. And just like Neo and like some of these other names, put in this little bit of a flag pattern, just kind of sitting tight, digesting this move. And here it is, very strong off the low. So we'll see. This one's one that has held up relatively well. Granted, it had thousands of percent move, but I mean, look at this, hasn't had the full retracement that so many of these other names have had. And so this is definitely one of the stronger names. So you got to keep an eye on this one here. Quantum, some of you guys were asking why it had quite the move up. It started earlier in the day, and then Binance came out later and said they were adding Quantum BNB and Quantum USDT pairs. It could also be related to some of the news around, maybe this change in sentiments back in the Asian region. So there's a lot of things, but news aside, this chart is very nice, very strong. Let me go to the Quantum BTC. And so, oh man, so I'm kicking myself on this one because I have a confession to make. So I was scanning the charts this morning, posting them out on my group, and I said, I like Quantum here, and this is where I saw it this morning. It had the rally, gave you a nice little bit of a bull flag, and I was I was watching the charts, and it looked like this. And I was having breakfast, and I'm like, man, Quantum looks pretty good here. It's some good secondary entry points. I might end up buying it. And then shut the computer down, came into the office, did my thing, and then I come back, and I'm like, oh. And there goes Quantum. And just, I didn't want to chase it. It's just gone. So it is what it is. But I was watching it, and I was telling people about it, but it was just, man, it's gone. So now I'm waiting, see what we can do. I'm just not going to chase it here, but very strong move. Quantum is probably the biggest winner of the day, up 70% from the near-term lows from the place that I was looking at buying. It was 44%. So, hey, missed out on a nice 44% trade. What can I say? It happens. Happens to the best of us. So there's Quantum. I still like this one. Man, Quantum though, Quantum USD. Did you see how low this thing came? This thing was down to $10. I mean, well, not quite, more like 11, but still. On Saturday when I was watching the end of the world play out and everything was free falling, and I saw Quantum, and I remember thinking to myself, really, Quantum's at $11, and I was like, man, wasn't that thing just at $80? And it was way back here. So we've had quite the pullback and seeing some good bounces finally. Let's see here. I will go through a couple of these Nano and Icon. Let me go ICX here, and I'll flip over to CoinGecko to do Nano. But ICX I'm really liking here. It's testing some key resistance right now. You can see the line on the chart. And so this is where it's bounced right into, see where it could go. And personally, I'd like to see this thing pull back just a little bit and set up a little bit better of a secondary entry point. But this one's looking good. If it can get above this also happens to be the 10 EMA on the daily chart. So it'd be clearing that resistance, clearing the EMA. So it would be a good setup, especially considering the volume at the lows. And this is a project that I like long-term and really attractive here at these prices. So got to keep an eye on that one here. Let's see here. Tron scares you because, yeah, and Tron valuation is kind of very unknown. Let's see here. Appreciate all you guys being here. Hit that like button, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So let's do, I'm checking out the comments here, guys. I'm going through the list. So sorry about the radio silence. BNB, I like BNB. I'll go through that, definitely. All right. All right. We'll do a few more. Let's go. So I'm going to hop over. Let me go BNB here first. So I'll do BNB on the Binance. Looking at you hit it twice. All right. Looking at the USD pair on Binance, it's just been sitting in this really tight range here, and just been watching this action here around that $8 to $9 range. Certainly looking pretty good from a chart perspective in terms of the resistance. Overhead resistance is very clear. It had that big rally last week when they announced the Binance chain and some of the stuff that they are going to plan to do with some of the DEX and the decentralization. And I love that. And Binance has really impressed me here, honestly, over the last couple of weeks, right? Just the way they've handled different things, the attack on the phishing and the way they, really quickly stopped the brakes on that, the alerts that came off, that prevented the hackers from moving the coins. They, reinstated everyone's accounts. I mean, just a lot of good stuff. And this was a good test that really proved to a lot of the traders out there that, Binance is serious about this and they're just doing the right things. CZ is a great leader for that team. So I'm really liking this all around. In terms of some of the other exchanges, right? They are certainly pushing the game and pushing the envelope. And so it's become a popular exchange for right reasons, right? So that being said, Binance, the level I'm watching here is, kind of an early signal would be getting above this, that 940, 950 range and, starting to see some volume come back in as it can do that versus BTC. It's kind of flagging out a little bit. It's looking pretty good here. So it was setting up and now it's kind of pausing a little bit. So we'll see where this can kind of set up here. So here's the daily. It's basically pulled right back to this moving average. This is where you're going to want to see it hold, right? This would be the ideal low versus BTC because that was kind of the breakout point on this little bit of a double bottom and put in, rallied right through that, pausing, pulling right back to that point now. And so that's going to be the level that I want to see here. What do I think of Polymath? Polymath is a very interesting project. Short summary is I like it. And just because of what they're trying to solve and what they're trying to do. I like the concept. I like the idea there. Is a token going to gain as much value as it should because of what that, maybe, but partner up with T0 to kind of provide some of the clearinghouse funding liquidity perspective. So if you haven't researched Polymath, go take a look. ICOs was the big thing last year. Polymath is trying to create the securitization side of that coin, right? So instead of initial coin offering, it's going to be this, what do they call it? ISO, or security token offering or something like that. But it's basically the securitization of assets onto the blockchain. So instead of just purely raising funds, Polymath is aiming to tackle a much larger market from a financial perspective, because if more of the financial institutions and the Wall Street types really start using that to securitize, blockchainize assets, then Polymath potentially looks to benefit from that. So check it out. Long story short, I like it. So that's BNB. I'm liking it here. I'm watching it for a potential pullback. See if it can hold this level. Dragon, full disclosure, I do hold some Dragon. And this one's an interesting project. So you can get it out on KuCoin. And so here's the chart there. Had a very big move off the lows. Huge move. But granted, this thing was beat up pretty bad, man. I mean, it was just down here at the lows. When I saw Dragon over the weekend hitting these 50-cent marks, I was thinking, what? Maybe I should just go buy a bunch of Dragon here, because 50-cent Dragon is crazy. And I probably should have, because the volume just came in near the lows, and look at that. It's already up 75%. And so, wow, that's it's quite the move. And I think longer term, it still has more to go, but it's had a big move here in the very short term. And so we'll see where it can go. RSI is not really like at extreme overbought levels, so it could still go higher here in the short run. Versus BTC, it's definitely getting up there. It's already at 75, could go higher, but I'm always just hesitant to chase something when they're going like this, right? It's basically going straight up now. I'd rather just wait for a pause. So, and you'll get them. You get the pauses. And so you probably don't like BTG fundamentals, but look at it as a trader. Yep. And actually, BTG was looking really good here from a trade perspective. Long term, not really too interested in it, to be honest with you. But I was looking at the Bitcoin Gold only from a very oversold condition level. I mean, look at the daily on this bad boy. It was down to, the RSI on this daily was down to 16. And I was thinking, man, that's worth buying just from a bounce play by itself. And sure enough, it had a good move off the lows, up about 15%. It's bounced right into that 10 EMA, though. So it's usually not one of my favorites to trade, honestly. It's not up there on the list. But, can't complain about this move that it's had here in the last couple hours. So it's looking very strong. Let's see here. So Dragon is going to be a different blockchain that some of you guys are asking. It's not necessarily a Disney coin, but it was developed initially by some folks there, Disney funded, but they kind of broke off, did their own thing. And so Dragon Chain is trying to set up its own blockchain, similar to some of these others that are trying to track, counterfeit and some of that. And so that's kind of the idea there. Smaller cap name. It's not on a lot of exchanges yet, but if it ever gets added to like Binance or some of these other ones, would be interesting to see what it does. Let's do 0x. So looking at 0x here, this has had a very nice move here in the last hour. I was watching this little bit of a flag set up, pretty good action, just broke out. So good stuff here. Off the lows. Again, another name that was just really trashed here, just looking really oversold near term and having a very strong move. And look at this volume here in this bar since we started this stream. I mean, just breaking out, tons of volume coming in. So exactly what you like to see here. And so that's looking pretty good on that hourly. On the daily, though, I mean, look at just how far down it's come. I mean, that move there looks like nothing, right? It's just a little blip off the lows, and the 10 EMA is still a few percent up from here. Let's see here. And it could still go up another 7-8% or so and just kind of hit that near-term resistance. So maybe for a quick trade, but if you like it longer term, you believe in it. I mean, these are the type of things that you watch out for is, these crazy oversold scenarios where it's more of a long-term value play. So looking pretty good here. Very nice move on 0x here. What's this move percent-wise? Let me see. Not bad. It's up about 4-5% in the last hour. So looking pretty good. Let's see here. I did ICX. Didn't do some of these others. I'm kind of going through the list here. Ooh, let's see here. Thanks, Trade Devil. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate all you guys being here. Yeah, let's take a look at Wabi. This name's been beat up pretty bad here. Not that one. Sorry. We'll look at waves too, but Wabi. So Wabi's setting up here versus BTC. Could and a lot of these are starting to make this same pattern. So I'm definitely watching where we see these run ups and kind of just pause a little bit here. Look for those breakouts above those key resistance, especially if the volume really starts to come in. So I'd be watching this one, but look at how far back this one came to. I mean, just basically retrace the entire move up and just right back almost to the point where it first debuted on the exchanges. And so this has had a huge fall, basically retrace the entire move. Long term, could be a good value at this point if you like it, but that's what I'd be watching here. It's probably due for a bounce though. I mean, so many of these are. Let me see here. Neo. Is it time to buy Neo? Better buy Neo or ICX? Ooh, that's a tough one. I think ICX probably has good upside percent-wise, considering it's sub $1 billion right now. But Neo is further ahead in terms of development and all that. And, it's kind of reflected in the price right now. And I think this should be higher, but still pretty good. I like them both. Mod, yeah, that's a good mod. Speaking of Wabi, where's Mod? I did have it on my list here. And so, again, another smaller cap name, kind of the Internet of Things, supply chain name type of, that tracking. And so smaller cap, you can see here by the candles that this just moves pretty wide and loose. And these smaller caps, smaller volume names, they'll just tend to do that. But, if you look at the bigger picture, the 4-hour charts, it looks like it's finally finding a little bit of a low here. And, the big level on the longer term, well, longer term meaning like a couple weeks or a couple days, if it can clear this, right, that, you might see a run up to that first resistance point, which is, still 13% above. And then above that, if you can clear that, you might see a pretty decent run up all there. So this one's looking pretty good here. Omise Go, I didn't do that one, so let's jump over to that. So OMG. Think I did it. Did I did it? No, I didn't do it. So this one's just clearing out some resistance right now. I had that rally right to it, trying to poke above some near-term resistance here on the 4-hour charts. If you go to the daily, this is one of the stronger names in terms of the pullback versus BTC, right? Didn't fully retrace that whole move, but this one had a little bit more history, had that huge run up middle last year, had that big pullback already. We're seeing the second run up. And so kind of interesting to see how it's been holding up so far. But right now, I mean, we're kind of running right into resistance here. And so we've got a few more percent to go, in my opinion, before we might see some back testing and some pausing here on these names. Let's see here. Neo. I'll go back to Neo. Neo's looking pretty good. Just broke out from that pattern here. And it's looking all around very good here from that ascending little base there. It broke out on the hourlies. Build a top 10 index portfolio. I am actually working on a couple of things to address that. I think you guys will like it. That's all I'm going to say, but it's going to be more than the top 10. I thought about limiting to like just top 10, but man, there's so many good ones. It's really hard to narrow it down to like top 5 or top 10. Honestly, if I was looking at the top 10, with the exception of a few names here, I'd be looking at, some names in the top, maybe the top 20 to pick from the top 10. That's what I'd be looking at. But I'm going to be looking at a little bit more names than that. So another one I wanted to point out, Neblio. Look how tight this one's sitting here versus BTC. So this one's been known to move here pretty good. So had this big run up and just kind of a little bit of a saucer pattern here forming, a little bit range bound. But look at how tight that's been getting here in the near term. So keep an eye on Neblio, see if we can break out above that, 10.7 or so is kind of the level that I'd be watching. And the volume here is looking pretty good here in the near term. All right. Let me see here. Kind of going through your comments here. EOS or Cardano? Oof, that's a good question. I'm leaning Cardano right now, personally. I got both though. Full disclosure, got both. I did Dragon. I like it. Dragon's very strong. I'd like to see a little bit of a pullback. Don't want to be too diversified. Absolutely, I totally agree with you. You don't want to be owning like 50 names either. Take your pick and kind of research fewer names and go from there. All right, so let's see. I'm kind of just watching. ICX is top 30. You got to have that. Agreed. Got to have ICX. All right, let's do a few more here. Nice reversal off the lows. Look at that volume coming in on this guy. So, and granted, this is a smaller cap name. What's this one come back down to? Let's check it out. $84 million market cap. Still very small relative to most names, right? But had a pretty good low. I mean, nice long wick with strong volume. The biggest volume that you've seen here going back for a long time, right? Till basically January. So very positive that you want to see that at the lows. Look at all this volume kind of showing up. So just tells you that there's a lot of support starting to show in here, or the sellers are kind of dumping here at the lows. You're kind of getting that capitulation. And those are the signs you want to see near the lows on these type of names. And so we'll see if we can see some follow through the upside, but everything's pointing to, yeah, these probably will see some more upside action here. But look at that long-term action here, this long wick on the over the weekend here. But like I said, a lot of these names just haven't confirmed yet, guys. I mean, so this is the first sign, right? This is the first step in trying to turn the momentum and all that. But this is pretty good here from a potential bottoming action, right? That's kind of what you want to see at the lows. It's stronger than like the action we saw just back here, just in terms of capitulation type of sign. So, all right, let's see here. Ontology. Oh, we're looking at that one for a while. Let's see the ONT. And this one's below the. Is it below? Not well. Yeah, it's kind of below the debut price. I mean, if you discount this wick here, just not strong. Not seeing a lot of follow through. Definitely not as strong as some of these other names. And so I'd be waiting to see if this can finally turn the corner here, but definitely not one of the stronger ones right now. Verge, the one that's way off the highs. Verge. Can't tell you how many emails and how many comments I got on. You should look at Verge when it was way up here. It's like, man, I can't buy Verge now. You know me, buying Verge after this. Oh man, 4,000%. At that point, I just missed the boat. But you know, now here it is back here, the lows. It's trying to base out here. I thought it was due back here. It looked like it was trying, had another leg down. So we'll see if this is the low. But the fact that it's just retraced so much, the fact that it was just so oversold, I'm betting that we'll see a pretty good bounce. And this one just tends to have some pretty strong bounces here. All right. Let me go through a couple more here. We did Monero. We did sorry guys, I'm kind of cycling through some comments here. Oh, Encash, that's a good one. That was setting up pretty nicely here. So I don't know what you guys think about the project, but I'm just not sold. I mean, the chart looks like it might be setting up a pretty good little trade here, but just the project itself, I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't know. It just seems so narrow of a focus. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how much it's going to be worth, but This one's interesting in terms of what they're trying to do here, but the chart was setting up pretty interestingly here today. I was, somebody was asking me about this, and I was kind of pointing out this little bit of a bull pennant that it was forming. Looks like it broke below it to the downside here. Let me kind of show the vid lines a little bit stronger so you guys could see that. And I was kind of waiting for this thing to confirm one way or the other, because when I looked at it earlier, that's what it looked like, right? It was kind of doing one of these. It looked like it really wanted to break out, but unfortunately, it kind of failed, and then we're seeing it pull back to the downside, and now it's kind of hitting this moving average as a resistance point as it bounces into that. And so we'll see where this thing settles out. And a lot of these names, because they've had that big run off the lows, kind of looking at some retracement levels in terms of potential areas they could bottom out at. And so right now, Encash is hitting that 3-2 level. The 50% mark, it's not a fib sequence, but it's a popular kind of pullback level, 50%. And then the next sequence down is here, but you don't want to see it get too far lower. So ideally, it'd be good if it bottomed out here around the 3-2. It would look much stronger in terms of turning the corner and going higher. All right. Let me see here. The market cycle over for Digibyte. You know, it looked like it was trying earlier, but I don't know, guys. What do you guys think? Digibyte, I know there's a lot of fans out there. There's a lot of bag holders. I've just never been convinced that it's going to be the big winner that they claim it's going to be. Certainly has had some nice rallies, and it makes for some good trading. Don't get me wrong. Is it a long-term hodl? I'm not hodling any Digibyte right now, but back here a few days ago, last week, I thought, hey, maybe this is it, right? It was showing some good action, very strong volume coming off there, pulling in. Had another leg down, unfortunately, and just seeing a new low. See how far this rally can go. If I did a fib bounce on here, what are we looking at? And we're just clearing the 3-2 level now, so maybe it goes up a few more percent. So who knows? This one, too, unfortunately, is just one of those long time, just downtrend. You kind of wonder, like, man, where's the low? This thing's going to bottom eventually, right? I mean, but unfortunately, the longer something does that, and as more coins come on the market, there's more competition, there's more attention diverted to other names, other projects. And so that's why the coin market cap, I mean, this is just such a young space. And if you look at, I mean, even just like 3 months ago, what this, top 20 list looked like, or the top 50, it just changes so much. And, 6 months ago, last summer, right, these were all totally different names. I mean, I remember in the top 20, right, it was like Golem and Saya and, Waves, and there's just so many other names, and just new names come online and they filter them out. They switch them around, right? ARK was much higher at one point. It's down to 50, and there's just so much change happening very quickly in this space. And so you got to be flexible. Don't get married to any idea or anything unless, if you've done the research and you truly believe in it long term, then certainly nothing wrong with that. But just be open to the idea that, hey, things change. All right, Zill. We'll do a few more, and then I will wrap it up and call it a stream. So let's see here. Doing Zill. But yeah, so this is another one that I was watching. This is looking pretty good here off the lows. Nice volume coming in, confirming the action here. But we saw some good profit taking show up here. And so maybe it's finally due for a little bit of a pause. But if you look at the broader picture here, and this was one I was watching last week, I almost bought it. Almost. But I was watching this, and the only reason I didn't was because of just some of the bearish action in BTC. And I was watching for this potential breakout, and I said, I'm going to wait. And sure enough, we saw the big pullback. But here it is, recovering pretty well, held up relatively well. So this one all around is looking really good. And the fact that the chart pattern is just so young, such a newer name, doesn't have a whole lot history. I mean, it's not going to take a lot before we clear overhead resistance and really starts to get moving. Once you're above any major resistance and you're kind of in new high territory, you got to discount this first bar. Above that, then it tends to move pretty quickly at that point. So I'm liking this one, and you got to pay attention to this one, in my opinion. All right, Spank Coin is a gem. Yeah, I don't know about those. I don't know about those. I just don't see them being viable. I mean, why would any of those sites use a coin specific to that when when you can just use any other coin? I mean, why would you want to be tracked if you're using Spank Coin? Like, it's a blockchain, guys. You know, I know who's buying and selling. You know, it's like suddenly your wallet has a lot of transactions. Man, you've been using that Spank chain quite a lot lately. All right. You guys are distracting me here. Oh, man. Let's see here. All right. We'll do the Z coin. And let me see here. We'll do Stratus. And then that's it. And then I will go back to BTC. We'll take a look and we'll go from there. So let's see here. Or actually, no, one more, because you guys did want to see power. Let's do Zcoin first before I forget. I do that often when I'm looking at charts. I'm thinking about something else. I'm talking at the same time, and then I say I'm going to do this chart, and then I don't, and then you guys hate me. So, all right. So looking at the Zcoin here, I've just been waiting for this one to bottom out here. Maybe that's it, right? Maybe that's the low point here, but I really want to be convinced. I want to see some, some confirmation to the upside here. I keep thinking we're hitting a low. We finally reached some pretty extreme levels here at the RSI, but like so many names did, and they're just kind of bouncing right now. This is a smaller cap name still. What, about 100, 200 billion or million? Let's see what this one is. Yeah, 164 million. And so, in terms of some of the privacy names, this is one that I like. So I'm kind of watching this one here, see what, they're doing some interesting stuff here. In terms of some of the nodes and all that development going on there. So could turn out to be a big winner longer term, but that's what I'm watching. But near term, not doing anything with it just yet. I'm kind of seeing if this is the low. It's had some false starts here in the past, and just, maybe if the alts finally start to rally, especially the smaller cap names, we'll see some more action on that. But for now, I want to see some more upside confirmation on that one. So. So this is Stratus BTC here, much stronger from the volume perspective. Look at that volume coming off the lows. At this point, it's just rallying in terms of the moving average, and it's pulling in a little bit. So I'd like to see if maybe it pauses here, sets up a secondary entry. But this is looking pretty good off the lows. And man, this is another one that I was looking at from a long time perspective here. Let me go to the calculated view, but this thing came all the way back down to like $3 or something, $4. So Stratus over the weekend hit 350 or so, maybe a little bit lower, but man, I was looking at that going, really, Stratus, I remember that was back here, right, where everybody thought, oh, Stratus is done, it's dead. It was kind of bottoming out around $3. We had that massive rally to 22, and then all the way back down to sub $4 levels. So we'll see. And again, there's just a lot of competition for some of these platform plays. I know they're kind of going after the enterprise market, but and they're early, so they should be ahead of the game in theory in terms of development. But if you like it, man, Stratus at $4 might be a good value there. And last but not least, let's take a look at the power ledger. Got that power. So looking at the power, this is the line. You can see the chart I've got here. Two things, right? We're seeing the downtrend's still not broken, and off this rally that so many alts have been so strong in, this one's not been as strong. Not bad, but you can see it's up, so 16%, so pretty good. It's just had a huge pullback here. The positive is on the daily chart, you're seeing this bullish divergence, and you're seeing some of that action here. So it's kind of telling me that probably a low or the low, right? We're getting pretty close to that, so kind of watching that one. You just realized this is live? I'm reading your comments real time. So yeah, we did EOS. earlier on, and I also discussed some of the EOS Ethereum selling and all that fun stuff. So, all right, let's go back to the BTC. Let's see how we're doing on the Bitcoin. 8,500. Telling you, thinking we're going to pull in. I actually would like to see a little bit of a pull in personally. Not a crash. We don't want to see that. But I'd like to see a little bit of a pause, a little bit of a pull in. I think we're seeing some divergence in the very short term. As I mentioned at the start of the stream, you're seeing the 30-minute chart, very short term, okay, but keep that in mind. But you're seeing a little bit of divergence here on the RSI as the price was attempting to go higher. Usually that's a little bit of a warning flag to me that tells me just maybe sit tight and let's see how this thing plays out before trying to buy the highs here. And so we'll see where that goes. But first level of resistance or support I'm looking at around 8,200. Below that, 8K down to maybe 78. I would really like for that to hold. If we do, otherwise, I mean, 8K would be even better. Longer term, on that 4-hour chart, we would set up a very nice inverted head and shoulder pattern. If we just get a small dip even down to 8,100, that'd be valid. Create a little bit of a right shoulder and then break out above this neckline would make for a much stronger bottoming formation. So that's what I'd be looking at here. So, all right, cool. I think we're gonna wrap it up. So I know there's other names you guys wanted me to look at. I apologize if I couldn't get to it in this stream. I'm trying to keep up with the comments, try to cover as much as I can in the hour and a half that we do. But that's going to call it a day. And thank you guys for watching. If you don't already, please subscribe. And I will be posting another video update tomorrow sometime. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.